Aniegolu. Well, let's continue our reflections on the political direction of this country and listening to the conversation we had earlier in the show. Tonight's guest commentator, and as you know, this is the point that we bring him in to give us his perspective on nearly everything we've covered in the program and beyond. And today I'm joined in the studio by the public policy analyst Abba Kaka. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
So where do you stand on the evolution of Nigeria's democracy after 25 years?
Well, actually, we have come a long way from the days of the military dictatorship. And a lot of people have been killed, harassed, maimed, you can mention, to make sure that the military is put out for democracy to take root. So 25 years of continuous, democracy is indeed an achievement. So we thank all those who fought to make sure that democracy is entrenched, like Mr. Kanu Nwaku here.
Mr. Clement
Nwaku, sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Clement Nwaku, and several others that were actually missing in the list that was published. But it was probably an honest mistake.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is the commitment they had, the patriotism they have shown, and as well as the statesmanship and leadership they actually brought in the struggle is what is missing in our politicians today. Our politicians today are so short-sighted, corrupt, as well as they only, as he said, do not see beyond their noses, which is very unfortunate. So the biggest mistake would have been for all those who actually fought the military to have entered politics at that time. As Mr. Nwaku has said, admitted they made a mistake. So how do we now correct the mistakes? Because the recruiting processes of our leadership in Nigeria is actually faulty, as I said before. And you see all Dick and Harry in leadership positions because nobody is checking, the system is weak, the system is not checking, and that's very unfortunate.
And it is that leadership that is key, isn't it? I mean, I'll quote Olisa Abakaba, who said that leadership is the critical and essential characteristic of good governance.
Yes.
So as long as it is absent, you'll have failure.
Indeed, indeed. To take it further, leadership is not a joke. Let's look at the First Republic. When the leaders in Nigeria emerged, Obafemi Awolowo, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Tafawa Balewa, Zik, those are not, they didn't emerge by accident. They went through a process. They fought for the country because they are patriotic. They are leaders, statesmen. And that's why they succeeded in the job they were given. And today, you cannot say that. Today is completely the opposite. Greed has taken over, corruption has taken over, as well as, I don't know if they are really statesmen when you see the actions and reactions of
Well, they can't be statesmen, I mean, and stateswomen. If you do those kinds of things, I mean, that completely eliminates the idea of you being a statesman. I mean, we were talking with Clement Nwaku earlier around the issue of the system of government that's practiced in Nigeria, because if the politicians as individuals won't have the moral character to take this country forward, we have to find a way to force them to do it. And if, for example, the system of government which is the presidential system, is changed. I mean, the argument that it confers on the winner enormous powers, even if he wins a minority of the vote, unlike, as we mentioned, South Africa, for instance, where the ANC has been forced into coalition because it failed to win more than 50% of the vote. I mean, if, for example, Tinubu winning 39% of the vote went into coalition with other parties. I mean, for example, Labour or you know, the others or so on. I mean, that might have forced or at least restrained the hand of the APC in terms of whatever excesses people believe that they are involved in. I mean, well, what are your thoughts in that direction?
Indeed, actually, this winner-take-all system itself is a problem. We are practicing the presidential system of government that is bloated, that is extremely expensive. You know, Nigeria is not Nigeria of the 70s or the 80s. As the former governor of Central Bank, Charles Soludo, said a couple of days ago, that we're actually broke. He should know better. I mean, he knows as a former, governor of the Central Bank. If we are indeed broke, we shouldn't be behaving like this.
Yeah.
That is why there's a lot of clamor for change in the country right now. Some people have gone even for regional governments. Others are talking about parliamentary system. That all tells you that the system we are practicing right now has failed. And the operators of the system refuse to operate based on the rules and regulations entrenched in the Constitution. They're more interested in what they can get. So that system of winner takes all is where the problem is. If we have the parliamentary system, which actually I will subscribe to, because change...
Well, that's what we had in the 60s.
Yes, that's what we had in the 60s, and it worked.
Yeah.
Until, the military struck in. So if we have a system like the parliamentary system, because change is inevitable, the way we're going, because we have reached a point where something has to give. And the system of presidential system is too bloated, extremely expensive. When you see the kind of money National Assembly members are making, 10 million naira a month.
It's obscene.
It's obscene.
Yeah.
But where is the leadership to question that? That's why those three legislators in the House of Reps, Honorable Rufai and another member from Kebbi State and Kwara State, I commend them when they rejected the 160 million naira Jeeps, SUVs, because they know where they came from, they can see the problems, and that is a good sign of good leadership. Because
you've got to lead by example.
You have to lead by example.
Yeah.
But how many of them can do that?
Do you think, some have suggested, and I don't know what your assessment of that might be, but do you think that if Nigeria was to be governed by a young or younger person, this country would move in a more optimistic direction, or it wouldn't really make a difference?
Well, definitely it will make a difference. The difference is the older generation, apart from the First Republic politicians and leaders, the older generations after that have actually failed the country.
Well, those people in the 60s were actually, essentially, arguably younger people. I mean, those politicians.
Yes,
when they were running the country.
Exactly, but in the 60s, during the First Republic, we have made tremendous progress before the military came in. But the generation after that, they have actually trained and entrenched good people to the system. But then the generation after that actually failed the young people. So the unfortunate thing right now is that young people think, unfortunately, that what is happening today is normal. They don't even see the difference between...
Yeah, that's a very important point.
Exactly.
And those people have become their role models. I mean, they become their mentors.
They have become their mentors. And indeed, there is a better way of providing service to the country. We have to look at, politics as service, providing service, which is missing right now. They can kill to come to Abuja just to make money. And that is a system that we need to run away from. We need a system where the parliament is going to be part-time. If 10 coming from each state or 5, whatever number is agreed, but it has to be part-time. It has to be dedicated to service, not like here, dedicated to Naira and Kobo, which is what is happening. Very, very sad. And look at the insecurity all over the place. All these are fallouts of a bad system. A system that is rotten right now is what we have, because the leaders and the operators refuse to stand up like Mr. Clement and his group did in those days.
So in that respect, because a big part of the problem is the process by which the people who run for office emerge. And that is the fact that constitutionally you must be part of a political party.
Yes.
So there are two things that come to mind here. One is obviously the parties need to be fundamentally reformed. And secondly, perhaps there ought to be provision for independent candidates.
I agree with that. The parties, the political parties are supposed to be formed and run based on ideas and ideology. Right now, what's the difference between the parties? I don't see the difference in most of the cases because they are not based on ideology. They are not based on any ideas. They are not based as if like paste and, copy and paste kind of political parties is what we have. So unless and until we go back to a system, if it is the parliamentary system, for example, this winner takes all is not going to happen, because if you don't have 50% or more of the votes,
you must go into coalition.
You must go into coalition.
Yeah.
Which is what the whole idea is, so that, let's say you got 50%.
And that becomes a check and balance.
A big check and balance, because you got 45% and I got 30%, and you just, became the president and you forgot about me. What about the 35% of Nigerians that voted for me, for example? What happens to them?
Yeah.
So, but former President Obasanjo, tried a little bit, even though it's a presidential system, to bring in people from
government of national unity.
Yeah. Exactly, which he needs to be commended about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So, I mean, at the risk of making you repeat yourself, I mean, you've made some very, very interesting points. I mean, well thought out, well articulated. What do you think can save democracy in Nigeria? What do you think could lead to a proper reckoning? Does it require something to really batter the leadership in this country to make them wake up and stop the drift? Something almost apocalyptic?
Number one, good governance. You have to have good governance. And good governance comes from good leaders.
Yeah, but if you haven't got good leaders, I mean, good governance isn't going to drop from the skies, is it?
It's not going to drop from the sky. That's why this system has to go. We have to go back. That's why Nigerians are clamoring, because the system is not working. Nigerians are clamoring for parliamentary system or a regional system of government that the older generations have already seen it has worked in the 60s and the 70s. We need a complete change of system. We need to have a complete mindset of the way we do things. And we have to have a system where you will not rush to come to Abuja just to make money, because the money is not going to be there. You understand? Let's say if you have the regional system of government, the resources are controlled by the regions.
Absolutely.
Therefore, there's nothing in Abuja, because Abuja itself is going to be looking for the taxes from the regions or the states, whatever system you accept to run. So that push to come to Abuja at all cost,
right,
will not be there.
So you're an advocate of parliamentary government?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, I want to thank you very much indeed. It's been absolutely brilliant talking with you and talking one-on-one. You know, that's very, very illuminating. Kaba is a public policy. Kaka. I don't know why I keep saying Kaba. There's a song called Cab. Maybe that's where it's
That's
coming
probably where
from.
you're getting it from.
That's the song by the group Genesis. And I love Genesis. They're a rock and roll band from the UK. But anyway, the public policy analyst Kaka. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And do have a good weekend.
You too.